Chapter 1181. Betrayal. This way, even leaving is a problem, but fortunately, the first person who signed the agreement seems to have reacted, so he went to this side and opened the storage room to see if Gong Yi and his party were here. And he found her unexpectedly. At this time, Lulinda couldn't help frowning. Seeing him, it was probably not a good thing, and since he was in this place, it was estimated that he should have made up his mind. Why are you here? I want to sign an agreement with him. Who knows that when I get to this place, I find that Gong Yi is not. See you, the captain and another person will come to this place immediately. If you guess correctly, the other person should. It's one of the agreements we signed, otherwise how could we have gone to tip off the captain? Marshall asked how he could come to this place. It is logically impossible for him to know any news. Lulinda introduced all the people who came to sign the agreement, and it could be said that each of them was trustworthy. I didn't expect that one of the crowd was savage. At the same time, I also discovered the existence of this person. Naturally, I wanted to kill him. After all, I didn't want to be so cruel to me, but I dared to offend me. There is always a price to pay for the majesty. I'll go check it out. This made Lulinda a little unresponsive. I didn't expect that some of these people were really traitors, and I was a traitor. How could I finally make him pay the price? At the same time, Lulinda's side also found some of the people who signed the agreement before. The more important thing should be to tell them first that someone has betrayed them, so that all people can take precautions. Otherwise, when the time comes to observe the political economy, everyone will point their finger at Gong Yi. Then it will be bad. With Gong Yi's power, although it is not that he cannot escape from this boat. But if he wants to bring those friends, the target is really too big, and he may be directly intercepted by Marshal Tucci on the way, so no matter what, he has to take his own responsibility this time. After all, he was the first to sign, and he pushed them over, and at this moment, another thing Gong Yi observed was that when someone signed the agreement by himself, he kept looking to the side. It could be seen that he came as easily as if he had a mission. But at the same time, Gong Yi didn't get along. He gently put the book in his hand on the ground and walked towards him slowly, without saying anything else. It's already a kind of recognition for myself, but after I came in and asked around, it's probably not a good thing. I know what the purpose of your coming here is. Everyone has a mission. Why don't we negotiate? As long as you can pass my test, I will directly tell you the information you want to know. Anyway, left and right, it's just the same. I believe that your old man has supported you last time. To gain my trust, first and foremost is to believe me when you are in a good mood, but you are still there. I found out when I didn't sign the agreement. After hearing this, the panic on the man's face was magnified to become bigger and bigger. This matter is not what to say more, it is just like that at first. I thought about it at first, and said something else to him, but now finding it is not as easy as you might think. Then are you still willing to tell me the news now? I was also ordered to come here. If I don't have these things, I'm afraid I won't be able to go back. At this time, Gong Yi thought about it for a while, and Aruma next to him also chuckled, which made the person not react. What are these people doing? Think about this place where I got the information, and they still betrayed me. Information, do you think will give you so much pleasure? But if you want something else, I don't mind, I can give you some. At this time, the expression on the man's face struggled for a while, and then he chose the matter proposed by Gong Yi. After all, your information. If you don't agree to this, even going out will be unknown. How can you talk about getting information in this place? So in desperation, the man had to sit down on the stool in front of him and tell Gong Yi about it. Take a look at some of the plans Marshal Tucci has made, including what to do next. In fact, Gong Yi did not expect that Marshal Tucci actually wanted to kill him, but now this person has disclosed all the basic information to himself, so that means there is basically nothing unexpected. That the storage room still left some clues. Chapter 1182. Clue 3rd. Telling them to clean up when they leave. These people really take their words on their backs, but it doesn't matter. they will suffer the consequences immediately. Anyway, they have this bed as a place to take refuge, which makes Mayor and Aruma seem to realize here, something is not quite right. So he rushed up and looked at Gong Yi. Gong Yi's face was blank at this time. He didn't say anything, did nothing, just sat in the middle and was quietly watched by the two of them. Unable to bear it any longer, it was Mayor who spoke first. "Captain, please support us, we don't care about this. This is a black pirate ship. Without the captain's permission, no one will be able to display their maximum abilities on this ship, which means that you may be hanged and beaten by him for a while, so hurry up and hide before he comes." At this time, Gong Yi looked at Meyer and Aluma in front of him with a strange look. At this time, the two of them also looked back at Gong Yi, who was on the side. Under normal circumstances, he would never say such a slander. It can be said that it should be listening to someone secretly, and who is it because of who? Is it because of Luffy? No one will send them to this ship except him. Maybe it is because of him that he became it is difficult to take back such a scene now, but no matter what, I always have to find a breakthrough point, otherwise everything will become the capital of being laughed at. At the same time, Lulinda's side also got news. Marshal Tucci has already begun to prepare to search Gong Yi's side to see who the so-called contracted people are. The last time he went to see Gong Yi, he was in a coma. There is also the fake death medicine that Luffy gave. That thing can keep him in that state for a short period of time. This is what Luffy told him before. Maybe he can use this method to cover up when he wakes up later. But I never imagined that things would turn out like this. Tell you a secret, as long as you go out from this path, you can find Luffy. This is what Lulinda told me before, and now it should be the best choice for you to defect to him. It can be said that it was brought from the port last time. Otherwise, there is no way for me to solve your affairs. After all, in his heart, I am just a state of suspended animation. In fact, the thing that made Gong Yi appear the most was that Chi didn't remember himself. You must know that the two were still enemies before. He didn't remember that it was a good thing for him to start his next move, but at the same time I made myself a little uneasy. Once some other things happened, how should I deal with it? At the same time, Lulinda also got instructions from Gong Yi, so they took all these people away first. Before leaving, Mayor and Aruma looked at Gong Yi worriedly, knowing that when that person came at night, it must be to check on him. If it turns out that she is not in a coma like before, will she not be in a coma like before? He would be kicked off the bed directly. These things made me feel very uneasy, so when the two of them refused to leave, Lulinda said a word to calm everyone down. Marshal Tucci is now the captain of the Black Pirates. If you think you can beat him, he will stay in this place. If not, don't block Gong Yi in this place. Two of them immediately understood. In fact, what Lulinda said was right. As for the current situation, it is definitely not a good direction for Gong Yi, and there is definitely not the easiest way between several people. Speed will solve it. This is the one thing that embarrassed everyone, but Gong Yi did not give up, and was still willing to deal with Marshal Tucci for the two of them. He also provided Luffy's address. If you guessed correctly, it would not be a good thing to go to Luffy. Since he was appointed as the deputy captain on the ship in this Black Sea, he must have done something for him, maybe two. Such an agreement has also been signed between individuals. There really isn't a big difference in what the two of them thought. Although Luffy signed an agreement with the captain of the Black Pirate ship, it was not for life, but for being able to leave that desert. After all, for Luffy, he has always wanted to leave this place to find the ocean since he was a child, and it was the agreement signed with Marshal Tucci that fulfilled his last request, and he could also treat Gong Yi. He can also help his crew get a chance of life, otherwise, if they stay in that place, it is estimated that all people will die. After all, that desert is not a place to feed people, it can swallow everyone's hope. Chapter 1183, Hiding. Who was followed by a few people, quickly walked over to Luffy's place. On the way, Lulinda also saw a few familiar people greeting him. What calamity is coming? Lulinda couldn't help but stunned when she saw their appearance. You don't have to be like this. The people you meet on this road basically have nothing to hide. If there is, I will make a gesture to tell the two of you to stop talking. After all, many people here are relatively friendly, and you don't need to worry too much, but there is also a point to remind you. When you get to Luffy's place, don't ask questions, just stay in that place. After hearing this, the few people were not easy to refute, and they simply stayed by the side without saying a word. After seeing their appearance, Lulinda shook his head helplessly, so I went to pack up my own affairs. I have to say that I saw a lot of people on this road, and it seems that I also saw Marshal Tucci. Aruma, look at that person as Marshal Tucci. After hearing this question, even Lulinda, who was leading the way, turned around and found that it wasn't him, but he was a person who looked very similar. How could this be possible? Isn't there supposed to be only one captain? The one who came out looked like a person carved out of a mold, which made everyone feel unreal, but at this time, Lulinda, probably because of the task, plus a while. I went back to work, so I had no choice but to hurry up and take two people through this area. Didn't take that person to heart anymore, but there was always a gap between Aruma and Mayer's heart. We must know that if this person is not greedy, he may cause Gongyi some trouble in the future. So the two decided to go back and investigate, of course, to inform him when they arrived at Lufeng. Otherwise the sudden disappearance would also frighten each other, and Luffy agreed after listening to the two of them. After all, there are some things in this place that are hard to imagine. It is a good thing to take a corresponding measure early. Of course, at the same time, Gongyi also posted a particularly strange place. Those who come to this place to change shifts and rest, it's like they are relying on it. They are the only one in the room, but at this time they have to take the suspended animation, the effect of which is 3 days. If Chi hadn't deliberately made things difficult, he would never have discovered that Gong woke up. At the same time, Mayer and Aruma also found the person who looked very similar just now. Are you the captain of this ship? Sorry, I just have a skill to help my appearance, and after copying the captain, I can't change back, so I became the ghost I am now. I was thinking of finding someone to help me free, and I often think about this place. Everyone, it's like they can't hear me. This matter is in line with the inferences of several people. After all, it was true when Aruma and Mayer first got on this bed. Those people seem to be unable to feel their questions, without any soul, but seeing them will also carry out a series of arrests, which may be a task the captain put down. Are they indifferent to the question from the captain of the black pirate ship? Could it be this person who said it from the beginning that he is not the captain of this ship, just imitating his appearance? It won't be targeted, but it's really a very rare thing. Then can you copy the appearance of the other deputy captains, except Luffy, as long as you copy one of them, we will take you away from this place. At this time, it made the other party have some difficulties. After seeing this look, the two of them were about to leave directly, but the other person suddenly spoke up. There is definitely no problem with the change, but this move requires a certain buffer period, that is, during this period I have to return to my original appearance, and then relax for 1 to 2 days before I can move on to the next one, otherwise there may be it directly affects the effect of reproduction. After hearing this, Aruma and Mayer looked at each other, and didn't really want to help Hishichung. You must know that this matter has to be approved by Gongyi. After all, as he said, if you really want to go back to the original appearance, at least it takes a lot of effort, so the two of them don't know how to do it. Don't worry, I promise that it won't hurt you. I don't have any offensive power, so I only have a disguise technique to use. You don't have to worry about this, and I can sign an agreement with you. Chapter 1184, Escape. Every pirate abides by this pirate agreement. As long as every agreement signed on it will take effect, even those. The punishment is not fast enough, but it will come one day, so no one dares to violate such a rule casually. But at the same time, a few people found a very surprising point. Unexpectedly, after Hishichung finished speaking at this moment, the bone part began to twist violently, as if it was changing shape, and at the same time, Shichung also radiated a kind of light that enveloped Aruma and Mayer. The two of them didn't realize what happened at first, and then the three of them were immediately wrapped in the same light. At this time, Shi made a gesture to silence them. Are you sure you saw a few of them coming this way? Sure. Can I still see them wrong? Even if I see them wrong, I don't dare to lie to you, boss. Marshal Tucci and the previous traitor walked towards this side with strides. This was Mayer's Aruma, who saw the man's face for the first time. I didn't expect him to be one of the first people to sign the agreement. It seems that the heart of defending people is indispensable. This statement is indeed true. You should give a hint. Linda told her not to trust this person, otherwise, he would never have their new image, and he was still following them. It seems that the situation in Gongyi should have been exposed, so Shichung made a gesture with Mayer. How long will this thing last? It's about half an hour. If you can come back to me quickly, you can continue to extend the time. I'm going to report the news to Gongyi. You're not enough to support the opposite. Cabin. Hesitating for a while. After that, Shichung took out a small bottle from Kabuto, then stretched out his hand, dipped a drop from the mucous membrane, put it gently in it, and handed it to Mayer who was beside him. The contents in this bottle can last for half the time for you, as long as you promise not to create anyone in the process of walking, then this time will not stop soon, and this drop is the essence. As long as you pour it on the mask next to it, it will quickly become invisible. After hearing this, Aruma grabbed Mayer and shook her head at him. Now she needs to tell Gongyi, but he can't. This matter is too dangerous and stands at the center of the two sides. It can be said that the two had to act separately to be able to cope. And told Aluma that he could go with him to find Gongyi. At this time, Aluma was relieved. This place is very close to Luffy, so if Aluma relies on this stealth effect, if it can be maintained in the past, there will be no problems at all, and the voices of several people are suddenly detected by Marshal Tucci. Who is in this place? In an instant, a sharp look flew over, and at this time, the three of them didn't dare to move, but under Shichung's hint, a few people finally started to take action. I am afraid that there will be problems with the rest of the people. Fortunately, within a short period of time, Shichung and Mayer successfully arrived at Gongyi's side, and Aruma also successfully sent the news to Luffy. It must be said that after Luffy heard the news, he was I was stunned for a moment. I didn't expect that the last lightning incident was really done by Gongyi, and they never explained it to themselves. So I don't know about the toll. I have promised Marshal Tucci that it's definitely not what the person I brought here did it, but I never thought that this would be a slap in the face right away, but it's okay, at least she can do it this way. Get most of the forces on the black pirate ship. You tell them not to be nervous. You tell me Gongyi just take out that book and that renegade man will immediately return to their ranks. After all, life on the black pirate is eternity. If you control it in life, no one will ignore you. After hearing this, Aruma hurriedly agreed and ran back to the other side, but when he got there, he found that there was no one in the lounge, and Gongyi's bed had disappeared without a trace, which made him puzzled. After a moment, Gongyi was dragging Mayer forward quickly. Shichung has been able to protect himself, and has already run away. The rest is Mayer, who fainted on the ground, was knocked to the ground by Marshal Tucci, who suddenly ran in. Seeing this situation, Shichung immediately disappeared in front of several people. Chapter 1185. Big things are not good. Why did you lose the chain at the critical moment? I thought you two came over. The senior who saved me came to cause trouble for me. When I thought about it, I knew you were so worried. I asked you and Aruma go. At this time, Gongyi dragged Mayer forward while not forgetting to complain about him. You must know that he was stunned for a while at first, thinking that the two of them got a chance, or got it. What a secret. So I hurried back to save myself, often thinking that the two of them came to cause trouble for me. I didn't react at first. When I saw the two of them rushing up, Gongyi knew that something was wrong. Although they have invisibility skills, Marshal Tucci behind them can clearly see what kind of people they are. It seems that Aruma didn't know where he went during this operation, and he didn't ask any questions. At the moment when the two of them just rushed over, Shicheng dodged and let Mayer block the blow for him. Just after Mayer was knocked to the ground, Gong Yi also reluctantly crawled out of the bed. When I got up, the fake death drug I had taken before fell on the ground and accidentally shattered. So Gong Yi originally wanted to rely on her acting skills to survive this scene. It seems that she doesn't have to pretend this time. She doesn't want to let herself do such a thing at all. So stupid. Nothing should be placed on the premise, and in desperation, a few people had to continue to flee in this place, dragging Gong Yi of Mayer. At this time, his physical strength also reached a limit, but he tried hard to convince himself not to. Able to give up. Don't run away, as long as you stop, I may give you another chance. After all, the two of us seem to be very familiar with each other, and there are always some memories related to you floating in my mind, although it's blurry and I can't see what I'm doing, but it doesn't prove that the two of us are definitely destined. After hearing this, Gong Yi's footsteps were even more afraid to stop. If he found out that he was the one who killed him, wouldn't he have to settle accounts with himself? That once was too dangerous, so I had no choice but to make such a judgment. But I didn't expect that. I ran in such a panic and went straight to the edge of the sea. At this time, Gong Yi's footsteps stopped all of a sudden. It should be half dead. So Gong Yi didn't continue, but the sound of Wang Yang's big waves hitting the hull below seemed to be calling himself to go down, and Gong Yi was staring at the man closely. Marshal Tucci went directly to the ever-shortening distance of himself. After Gong Yi took a step back, he threw Mayer directly to the ground. I just took you as a brother. Why are you chasing after me like this? At this time, Gong Yi could only try his best to clear the relationship between himself and Mayer, hoping that after he disappeared, Mayer could still be treated normally. After hearing this, Marshal Tucci glanced hesitantly at Mayer beside him, and then at Gong Yi in front of him. At this time, Gong Yi deliberately put on a look of horror on his face, even if he didn't believe it. People, I guess, have been persuaded by now. But he didn't let his guard down because of this. He had to know that the person in front of him had been trying to get closer to him. I don't know why. No matter how bad it is, you should be cautious about yourself. He is not my companion or one of my subordinates. I don't know where he came from. He may have boarded this ship with my co-captain. I will ask him later. But you are different. You were specially entrusted by the deputy captain. You can go back with me, and I will not force you to ask. At this time, Gong Yi snorted coldly. Who will believe you? If you take one step further, I will jump directly into the sea. Marshal Tucci did not believe that he would really go down. He had to know that there was an unknown ocean below, and the direction of the black pirate ship was completely determined by his mood. Not under their direct control. This can be regarded as a point for Gong Yi to capture. He is actually hesitant, then this time must be a good thing. He must go down from this place at the most decisive speed, and there may be some opportunities to save his life. Just under his gaze, Gong Yi took a step back and jumped back into the ocean. As the seawater soaked his head, his hair floated on the sea, and at this moment, Marshal Tucci suddenly panicked. This was the last thing Luffy entrusted to him. Chapter 1186. Falling into the water. He even called some sailors nearby to try to salvage this man, but at this time Gong Yi had already sunk into the middle of the ocean, and it was too late. A wave is blowing all kinds of meat and 8 elements. Where is there any situation and ability to fight back of the ocean and leave this place like this? But I have to say that at the same time, all the people also noticed this and ran frantically to the deck, and at the same time they got the toll. The news said that Gong Yi jumped on the deck. And before he died, he pointed at the captain and another man to get angry. At this time, Luffy felt bad in his heart. When those people came over and told him these things just now. But I didn't expect it to be dismantled like this in a blink of an eye. I had known that I could shelter Aluma and Mayer. If I couldn't, I confess that they also brought them on the boat. What's the big deal? But now there is no thinking of taking Gong Yi, life into it. After Luffy arrived on the deck, he saw Mayer lying in a coma beside him, lying on the ground without a sound, looking like a lifeless rag doll, and a man standing beside him with his hands behind his back. With a contemplative expression on his face, not knowing what he was thinking, at this time Luffy ran over in a panic. "Look at what you did. How did you promise me?" Luffy took a step forward and grabbed Marshall Tucci by the collar, shaking him constantly, as if he wanted her to give him a complete answer, but at this time there was only an indifferent expression on his face. Even Luffy didn't know what he was thinking now, but there was no way. He has to give himself some compensation for what he does, and he has to know that no amount of money can make it up this time. It is a living human life. Jumping from such a high deck, it is not possible to die, but it is turbulent below. How long can he live? All this made Luffy collapse in an instant. Sitting near the deck, weeping bitterly, he kept muttering Gong Yi's name in his mouth. After seeing this scene, Marshall stepped forward and wanted to pat him on the shoulder, so that he would not be sad, but at this time, Luffy couldn't hear it. He raised his hand and smashed the hand he had placed on him. "You don't just owe me a life now, you owe him a life. You know how hard it is for him, and what it's like for me," he said. "My only friend in this boat. I know if the person next to you is your accomplice, someone will take him away from me, and I will have a good interrogation in my room." After hearing these words, Marshall Tucci felt guilty in his heart. He didn't even think he was deliberately acting for himself. At this time, he only thought about how to make up for the travel expenses. But after Luffy took the man away, he sighed and looked in the direction of the sea. He could only shake his head helplessly. Although he said that he really wanted to help him, there was nothing he could do. He had already tried his best to do what he could. "I did it, and now it seems that it is my best effort to keep Mayer's name." He specially ordered Lulinda beside him to help him find the whereabouts of Aruma. At this time Lulinda also did the same. When I brought Aruma back, he saw Mayer lying with a pale face. On the bed, they asked about Gong Yi's whereabouts. At this time, several people were pale, and no one answered Aruma's question. Only at this time did Aruma realize that something had changed, and he quickly grabbed Lulinda's collar. "Is it because of you that he went to die again?" Lulinda looked at him in silence, then shook his head and broke his hand off his shoulder with one of his hands. "It's because he wants to protect Mayer. If he doesn't do this, the two of you will not be able to survive on this ship at all." Now Luffy can only use the excuse of interrogating him to temporarily escort Mayer here. Find some other way to get rid of Mayer and you, and everyone will be guilty of it. After hearing this, Aruma couldn't believe it. She took a step back. How could things have developed to such a level? She didn't believe it at all. How could Gong Yi jump directly into the sea? Like him, such a smart person must wait until the last time when they can do nothing to laugh at all the people and tell them that they are the final winner. But why did things suddenly develop to such a stage? All the people didn't react. In fact, Gong Yi himself didn't know why he made such a choice in the first place. That's his responsibility as the captain. Chapter 1187. He actually became their boss, and he was responsible for their lives, and now he is just a step back. Listen to me first. He definitely doesn't want you to become the sluggish look she is now, so you have to cheer up as soon as possible and flee to other places with Mayer. As the deputy captain, I am going to the point is that, and you haven't signed a fake agreement with Gong Yi. You cannot stay in this place, and there is no problem in a short period of time. After a long time you will find that all the functions of your body will decline. After hearing this, even if Aruma doesn't face, he can only choose to believe. After all, what he said can't be false. Luffy didn't lie to them, and what he did was indeed for all people save lives. But this point and the method of life are to make myself unacceptable, and even want to jump up and fight him for this life. Why don't I want him to be able to return to my side? But the expressions on the faces of the few people on the side, it's not fake either. They definitely want Gong Yi to come back. But at this time, Gong Yi was being kissed by a school of fish, as if he was kissing an angel sent by God. Every little fish was very careful. Finally, when he was on the shore, a group of people found him, and then put him away. People salvaged it. My child's father, look at how this child has become like this. A strong man just surrounded Gong Yi. After seeing Gong Yi's state, he carried her on his back and sent her to the doctor in the town. The doctor just said that he was in an indirect coma, and there was nothing serious. The couple heaved a sigh of relief and went home directly. Gong Yi just carried it on his back and returned to another person's house. At the same time, he also had a child at home who liked to listen to those adventure stories. After Gong Yi woke up, besides drinking medicine, the most fun thing was to share with everyone the experience of patrolling those seas before. I never thought that these experiences hadn't been told to others. The people who heard that this kid took advantage. Brother, when you go back, it's not good for you to take me to the sea. Gong Yi smiled and rubbed his head, but he couldn't do anything casual, knowing that the savior at the time was still there, watching him beside him. But the child's mother smiled kindly every time, and the uncle was more considerate. After he got better, he struggled to get up to work. The uncle scratched his head and smiled and said that she was alone at home. It's enough to support the whole family, so I would advise her to take care of it again and don't move until she gets hurt. Otherwise, the medical bills that they made before, wasn't it wasted? After hearing this, Gong Yi honestly shrank in that place, and one day the uncle came back from outside with a few scars on his face. This made Gong Yi a little surprised, knowing that he couldn't share this matter with another child or a woman in the family, saying that when he went out drinking at night, Gong Yi just next to the uncle. Why don't you tell me about it? Anyway, I'm a man in this place. After hearing this, the uncle turned his head and glanced at Gong Yi. He seemed to have some distrust of him, but Gong Yi kept smiling and didn't say much. Whether he believed it or not was up to him, but Gong Yi kept on smiling. Yi has already thrown an olive branch, and before leaving, he also hopes to make a little contribution to this happy family. After all, it was always his own fault. If it wasn't for the carelessness at the beginning, how could they have succeeded, let alone stay on this small island for such a long time, and would not have caused such a big trouble to their family? Since it's you who asked, then I'll just say it, but I hope you don't have any extra thoughts, and I don't want to drive you away now, mainly to see what those people want to do next. If there is nothing serious, there is absolutely no problem in leaving you here. I hope you can trust me once. Listening to Uncle's explanation, Gong Yi smiled, nodded, and then continued to listen to what he said. It turns out that Uncle saw those people on the other side of the island today. The people on the black pirate ship. It turns out that Marshal Tucci did not give up to find yourself. It seems that his face really gave him a lot of extra points. Otherwise he should have been thrown into the wilderness long ago, but this kind of thing also made me feel a little weird. Why are you always tight staring at himself? Is there any other purpose? But aside from this matter, what surprised Gong Yi was the attitude of the uncle. Under such circumstances, he still allowed himself to live in his house. Impressed a bit. Chapter 1188. Return. Anyway, now, looking at it, I will definitely bring more troubles to you in this place. It is better to let me go first, and I will go and see what they want to do. That Black Sea ship has some of my companions on board. I believe that this person must not dare to do anything to me. Why didn't we make a bet? I will definitely come back safely and report to the two of you, and the little boy also. He likes me very much, and I remember it. Knowing that the uncle is for his own good, but Gong Yi really does not want to see them being implicated by him. After all, this matter is not as simple as the uncle thinks. If it is easy to get rid of the shackles of Marshal Tucci, then he will not. It will jump into the sea. But I can't wait to pass it directly to the bottom and hold a big rock. So things have grown and changed, and the uncle's mind also understands himself. After returning home, the uncle closed the door and discussed it with the aunt. The aunt does not agree with the uncle to do this. No matter what, she will keep the children of others. Finally lived in their place for a while, and my family is not greedy for life and fear of death. There is also a cellar. Once it is really found, there will be. Other excuses will be fine, there is no need. Do these things, but the uncle obeys Gong Yi's wishes. Maybe there are some other companions on the boat, so you have another option to let him go back. After hearing this, the aunt couldn't help but agree. Although she really wanted to fight, what the old man said seemed to be a little bit right, at least. He left it in this place, it's better to let him go like this, and there are other things change. It's not me who said this, and you are too reckless. You shouldn't tell him the news one day, you should discuss it with me, and we should leave him when he's not paying attention. Like this you tell him, and he will definitely not agree with what the two of us say. Gong Yi, who got up to fetch water, never arrived. He even heard this sentence, which instantly made his heart feel a little warmer. It seemed that no one cared about him except his friends, and there were many others. I hope to see myself live happily, which also makes Gong Yi firm on what to do next. Have to get your teammates out of the man's hand first, and then take everyone out of the ship. The black pirate ship is not. Anyone can get on the ship, and an agreement must be signed when they go up. It should have been discovered long ago. So the next morning Gong Yi personally sued. Didn't go back directly to the black pirate ship. The moment he stepped on the ship, everyone's eyes were focused on him. Gong Yi was not afraid, it was so big. Stepping forward, Luffy saw him and rushed forward quickly, holding her hand, his face full of excitement. I really didn't expect that he would be able to come back alive. I thought he was buried in that ocean. Since she left, she found the magic book that Gong Yi left behind. In this way, Marshal Tucci was imprisoned in a secret room. His captain is useless. The only use is to maintain the balance of this black pirate ship, so that he can switch places on this sea at will. But I didn't expect it. But on the second day of staying here, Gong Yi actually came back, and Luffy couldn't tell whether it was reality or his own imagination. Meyer and Aluma on the side also ran over. Meyer quickly asked Alma to give him a slap and found out that this was true, so he jumped up and hugged Gong Yi in front of him. It couldn't be more surprising. And one thing is just like this. If it is said that he does not react, it is still good, but he never expected that Marshal Tucci was actually locked up. This is not his style, is it? Wanton planning some other things. About this, Gong Yi communicated directly with Luffy, but Luffy disagreed. When he imprisoned him before, he specifically asked other people if they had any ideas. They unified. They all shook their heads, expressing their willingness to follow some of the vice captain's ideas. This also reassured himself, so he simply did it. The man was quite calm, and there was no response in the small dark room, not even a few voices. Silent like this, as if she was thinking about the relationship between Gong Yi and him. But how could he want to use the spell on that magic book to seal that part of her memory once again? After a while, if he remembered it, wouldn't the pirate ship be in chaos? Chapter 1189. Farewell. First. He already has 10 doubts about you now. You'd better not show up in front of her for a while, otherwise I can't stop things at that time. You have to know that he is also a fuel-efficient lamp. We imprisoning him in the small dark room for a while. No reaction, but that doesn't mean he won't do something else. Gong Yi nodded to indicate that he understood, but he still wanted to see Marshal Tucci, a man who was on an equal footing with him back then, except that he used the Doden Earth-style technique. Now it seems that as the captain of the Black Pirates, he doesn't seem to have any response to this aspect, and he can't even remember the Doden Earth-style technique, but fortunately, how can such a skill be used in the sea? At the beginning, Gong Yi also forgot that when he was jumping into the sea, he could use those seawater to make a protective shield to avoid himself in it, but then he thought about it, that would not be enough. Realistic now, how can it be exchanged for her trust? And now it is considered a good thing, at least let Luffy directly control the ship in his hands during this period of time, although the pirate ship is not a good thing. But now it seems that if you don't control it, there is no remaining solution for a few people. But Luffy seems to be relieved a lot. It should be through the communication with that person to control the black pirate ship in his hand. He thinks that there may be some changes. In the end, and at the same time, the most uncomfortable thing in my heart is Mayor's state. His eyes looked blank, as if he was frightened. When he saw him, his whole person hoped to be lit up, and the feeling of loss made him feel a little sad in his heart. Know what that feels like. After all, when I saw that he was about to press the palm of the headless corpse, I had such a feeling in my heart that I would protect her no matter what, and this was my promise to them back then. They were all ready to go. At this time, the uncle and aunt came to the shore to send themselves off. Gang Yi smiled and waved at them, but in order to ensure the safety of several people and the next problem of food and accommodation, Gang Yi also left some other supplements. At this time, the aunt smiled, and then returned those things back. After all, you still have to travel around the sea for a while. What if you don't have enough resources? We are very complicated in this place. Don't worry, you just need to protect yourselves. Come back and have a look, and this child has been thinking go with you. It is better for you to let him experience with you. After hearing this, Gang Yi wanted to refuse. After all, this is the Black Pirate ship, not one of their ships, but Luffy next to him agreed directly. Moreover, you from the previous ship actually appeared on this pirate ship. All the people gathered together, Lan Ying and Bobo were also found. I have to say that this time the action was quite fast. After I left, it became different. I really didn't expect you to gather everyone together. Let me see how Bobo is doing recently. Gang Yi broke Bobo, and the little fox measured his stomach with his hands later, and found that he had gained weight again, so he couldn't help looking up at Lan Ying, who was humming a tune at this time, and turned his eyes to other place to go. I don't admit that this little fox flew out by myself, lest I have to throw the blame on me when I get it, anyway. Now I have enough on my back, and I don't want a second one for the time being. At this time, the child on the side was very curious, and stretched out his hand to touch Bobo, but he didn't expect that the little fox seemed to recognize that it was born. With a sound, the child didn't feel aggrieved, smiled at him, and then kept touching his hand again, which made everyone a little surprised. I didn't expect that there would be such a child, not afraid of such a fierce fox. Bobo seemed to be convinced by him that he lost his temper, so he just patted his legs and was randomly tugged. Look at the appearance of the two of them, they are also more harmonious, or let's keep this child first. Now that he has gone far, we can't send him back. When Gang Yi said these words, everyone looked at him in surprise. Who said that the child was to be sent away? Didn't you find that he lived well in this place, and this was entrusted to you by those two people at the beginning? Are you embarrassed to send them back? I didn't expect you to be such an irresponsible captain. It seems that we really misread you. We should tell Luffy not to give you the title of captain. It's a waste of a lot of resources. Chapter 1190, Leave. After hearing these words, Gang Yi was a little dumbfounded. Why all of a sudden these sins all came back to him, and now, it is not that he wants to do these things alone. That they all wanted to keep this child, so they could have said it earlier, but I was still speculating about what they were thinking. But the students wanted them not only to accept the little kid, but even to want him to stay in this place for a while longer. Looking at their hopeful eyes, Gang Yi was a little flattered, and the children got along very well with them, especially with you from the back kitchen, who often discussed other meals together. It seems that it may be a good thing for him to stay here. It must be a good thing for you. You tend go to the kitchen to eat. After Gang Yi heard Lan Ying's words, he couldn't help turning a Byakugan, and then looked at the place in front of him, knowing that the man was probably there all along, recalling his own memories. After a period of time, I can successfully get out of that place, and then the disaster of a few people will come, so I still want to avoid it now. I want to quickly return to the previous period, turn everything upside down, and start all over again. But the current situation is completely different from what he thinks. Marshal Tucci has no intention of escaping. And then bowed his head again to do his own thing. Sometimes he let himself not understand what he really wanted to do. Have you really done anything special in the past 2 days? No, the whole person is very quiet, like a rag doll. After hearing this, Gong Yi's face stiffened, and then he quickly sent someone to check inside the room. As expected, you were really a ragdoll, just a stand-in. The real person didn't know it for a long time. Where are you going? This scene made Gong Yi feel a little panic in his heart. What if there are other emergencies at that time? If he can't catch Marshal Tucci, he may also meet him when he is reborn. The other technical aspects are the same. If you want to catch it, you first need to understand him. The traces of Marshal Tucci must be found, even if it's just some of the things he left behind. After hearing this, Aruma's face froze for a while. It seemed that something major had happened. Lu Fei also came over and saw. The expression on the ragdoll's face also stiffened. Go on, to know that this thing should not be in this place. Has Marshal Tucci already made a decision? A special method? Many people do not know, but the legend of the pirate ship has been circulating in it. The real captain has the ability of a substitute, but it can only be used once. How is it now? Luffy came over and asked Gong Yi. Gong Yi could only shake his head and said that it was not very good. These things have nothing to do with him, but they started when he got on the boat. The current things seem strange, but in fact it is all gradual, because I have seen the result of this in the magic book. But I didn't take it to heart. I didn't think that everything would continue in that direction. That book could be used for divination and prediction, and I saw that. Some words on the book, so I chose to jump from the ocean of Wang Yang, and I didn't use spells. It is estimated that the matter this time will be difficult to solve, so just do what you can. Gong Yi nodded, and then went to order those people to help with other things. Some of the equipment on this pirate ship is actually very complete, and even an admiral like an admiral can't catch up, and at the same time Gong Yi also noticed something weird on the ship. It's like the cabin is the one below, and the bottom plate can never be opened. Some people say that that place is the water exchange leading to the sea below, but it's not that simple. I used to be a captain. Has also talked about the various places on the ship. This place is not a water exchange area at all, but a place similar to an underground deck. She always avoids it and refuses to let herself see the reason, and every time she approaches when the steel plate, those crew members will come to stop themselves. This gave me a little headache, and I always wanted to go down and take a look when they didn't find it. Chapter 1191, Iron Plate Third More. One day, Gong Yi had the chance. When all the crew members were working on it, Gong Yi finally had a chance to get close. The sound of some engine churning came from the steel plate. Such a sound on the black pirate ship is not so good. Rare. This itself is a ship composed of machinery, otherwise it would be so fast that those admirals could not catch up. But what is the mystery underneath? Gong Yi gently lifted the steel plate, but found that there is a long ladder below. I don't know where it leads. As Gong Yi walked down, the sound of his footsteps stepping on the ladder gradually became heavier. For some reason it was pinching his heart at this moment, as if something was about to come out. When I got to the bottom, there was a kerosene lamp lit in that shot. Gong Yi didn't know what it was, but the short and narrow passage was suddenly lit by that kerosene lamp. It seemed to be just lit, the oil hasn't had time to melt yet. Seeing this scene, Gong Yi's eyes narrowed, and then he continued to walk forward, while observing the surrounding sounds, and did not hear those footsteps, but felt that there was something unreasonable. If this kerosene lamp, if it has just been clicked, then it is natural that there should be some other situations around. But this place was very quiet, not even the sound of footsteps, which made Gong Yi have some doubts, but after walking 2 steps inside, he found that there seemed to be a door at the end. Gong Yi gently pushed tentatively. When I opened the door, I found what looked like a steering wheel on it. Gong Yi turned the steering wheel back and forth, but found that there was no response, so he could not help but turn his head and look over there again. He found that the kerosene lamp was the origin, and drew a circle with the surrounding radius. Many special features were displayed on the ground. I couldn't read the words at all, and I couldn't even tell what they were. In desperation, Gong Yi had to arrange them together. When he turned around again, he looked at the door. Suddenly the same text as before appeared on the website. But when he turned his head to look, all the on the ground disappeared. This scene made Gang Yi feel a little bizarre, but then he thought about it again. Nothing shocking happened. Gang Yi installed the sequence and direction of the text arrangement gently that something like a turntable. When I heard a click, this door opened slowly. Gang Yi tried to push it, and it fell over in one. And the latter scene is also exposed. It was a place similar to a laboratory. The complicated machines in it were still not together. There were also many very tall glass tubes imprisoning some unknown people. They had all kinds of scars on their bodies, which seemed to be or often experimented with. But they didn't have any sense, as if they had no connection with the outside world. As the surrounding lights suddenly turned on, at this time, the comatose creatures floating up and down in the experimental tank had also woken up, and some of their eyes were blue, and some are the color of blood. Yuhi, these things have not been considered. It's Gang Yi. No. It stopped and kept going backwards. It didn't stop until there was something behind him. Gang Yi could obviously feel that the thing behind him had a heartbeat and a warm body. If he guessed correctly, if so, this should be a person. Could it be that he is the person who made this experiment? I really didn't expect that there are still fish that slipped through the net and came to this place. When Gang Yi heard this, he didn't turn his head in a hurry. Go with the flow and push your plan forward little by little. Anyway, it doesn't look like he is a fuel-efficient lamp, and it is estimated that he is always staring at his small movements, so there is no need for him to be polite to him, otherwise, the deal is just a waste of time. At this time, Gang Yi also noticed that the bottle on the other side began to shake gently. After the man scolded angrily, he didn't care about himself anymore, but the one below. The bottle went over, and it was Gang Yi who could see it clearly. A man with a strong back. The man walked up to the bottle, kicked him fiercely, and kept torturing him. At this time, the animal inside became quiet, and Gang Yi was able to see the animal clearly. Face. At this time, her blue and clear eyes were like the sea, staring at Gang Yi, as if she wanted to say something to him. This was the man in black who found it and glared at him quickly. The creature dared not say anything, and lowered its head. Chapter 1192, Monster. It really makes you laugh. I have nothing in this place, just these. There are many strange things. Where did you come from? Black pirate ship. After hearing the name, the man's hand quickly hesitated for a while, as if he was thinking about how to deal with himself next, so Gang Yi smiled, walked up to him, and picked up the front of him. Bottles. There's no need to make excuses. If you have any ideas, just say it directly. If you don't welcome me, I can go back the same way. The man in black smiled, but didn't say anything, as if he was waiting for Gang Yi to make his own decision. At this time, Gang Yi refused to say it in advance. For a moment the bottle shook again. But at this time, the expression on the face of the man in black was not the same as before. It was not as cruel as before, as if he felt it, and that kind of thing was no longer a threat to the creatures in that apple. But in the blink of an eye, when the man in black was approaching, that creature suddenly jumped out of the jar and scratched his neck with its long claws. The man clutched his neck and quickly pushed Gang Yi, hid in a door beside him. Don't make a sound. After hearing this, Gang Yi immediately. He covered his mouth, and when he looked out through the gap, he found that creatures kept wandering around in this place, and then broke several other apples and released all those creatures. They smell the scent lightly with your nose. As if trying to find the hiding place of the two people, the man in black gestured with his mouth, indicating that the eyes of these creatures are not easy to use. They can only identify them by hearing the sound and perceiving their smell. The which is used as a hiding place, also has the same effect. It still reduces the sound. The second is, it can hide their traces, but I have to say that this time it is beyond my budget. I didn't expect these monsters and funds so close. I seem to have heard the friction between the two of their clothes just now, and those things were slowly fed around this man. The man in black also became nervous and grabbed the two plugs at the door, for fear that they would suddenly he broke through this, and then kept gesturing to Gong Yi next to him with his eyes, asking him to take the lead, but at this time Gong Yi was also a little overwhelmed. Without knowing what these animals were, he didn't dare to act rashly, for fear of offending something incredible. However, at this moment, Gong Yi also discovered those. The animals also seemed to be inquiring about the heartbeats of several people. Sound, and some of their crisis responses. I have to say that the man in black grasped it very well. He was able to hold the peg at the door, preventing them from advancing, and maintaining a proper distance from them. They have been bumping against the fence outside, as if they want to break through that place, but it is different for Gong Yi. What he sees is that they want to leave. The man in black must have control over them something. Is he trying to use this to threaten himself, or is there some other purpose? I may have to take it slow to see it, but at this moment, I suddenly remembered Jing Ning's report voice, that the sound was extremely harsh, even loud. Even Gong Yi had this idea, not to mention the what about these hearing animals. Seeing the pained expressions on their faces, Gong Yi couldn't help but look at the man in black behind him, but he had a decisive look on his face. What these creatures turned into had nothing to do with him. Seeing that the man in black was so cold-blooded, Gong Yi pushed open the door and ran to the front of the main control room, and pulled the Yuhi-colored wrench down. And at this time, the animals also stopped howling, but they seemed to have sensed their tracks. They quickly turned around and ran to their side. Gong Yi was also calm, and he didn't move a single step. Animals sniff around themselves. After a while, they seemed to be familiar with these smells, and the animals ran back to the side of the cabinet. At this time, the cabinet door was opened, but the man in black never dared to pull the door. This kind of sound is enough to cause their attention. But just at the moment when the animal rushed over, it tore the man in black to pieces. Although Gong Yi's legs were shaking when he saw this scene, he told himself in his heart that he must calm down. Absolutely not. What other questions will there be? As expected, while he was looking at them, these creatures were also looking at him, especially the one who locked himself for the first time. His azure blue eyes seemed to remind him of something. Chapter 1193. Escape first. Just before Gong Yi could react, those animals rushed towards the door, trying to point out a way to himself, but Gong Yi wanted to go back even more. I looked over there, but found that the gate has been blocked for a long time. It seems that someone deliberately framed him and wanted him to come to this place to die. When he was leaving, he didn't forget to take a look at the man in black next to him. This might just be tragic end. You shouldn't always use the idea of slaughter to deceive all the feelings around you. These creatures also have one's own thoughts will be exposed one day, just like now. A sigh, Gong Yi followed in the footsteps of the first animal and left this inexplicable laboratory. After a few people left, a video suddenly popped up on the big screen. It was about the black man. What people recorded before. No one thought that those are new types of experimental objects. You can live for a long time on this black pirate bed without signing a contract, but it was mutated by a member of another ship, and these things made him completely unexpected. But after seeing a name tag behind those creatures, Gong Yi didn't. He got closer and found that each tag had a different number written on it, like a uniform number, which made him unable to help. A little surprised. When he looked up again, he saw those azure blue eyes. Although he couldn't speak, he was able to tell himself all the emotions in his eyes, and every point could be revealed. I have to say that this is really true. Let yourself not think of it. Where are we going? That azure blue eyes replied that he should go back to the original place. After all, he yearned for that kind of state of memory, but what he never expected was that although he was going back to his place of belonging. After they got on a boat, it was obvious that the dark atmosphere here multiplied. Between the lightning and flint, a large oil barrel suddenly rushed toward the face. Gong Yi thought it was his own illusion at first, knowing that things are blowing through the wind, and the sound and speed are real. This made Gong Yi realize that what was in front of him was not but Gong Yi didn't want to reveal his ability to manipulate water, which was a secret. The monster rushed over and grabbed it directly. The big oil drum was thrown back, and at the same time as the oil drum landed, two similar creatures also crawled out there. Gong Yi was stunned when he saw it. There was a group of it was already enough of a headache. I didn't expect that there would be another group. Two groups of monsters scuffled. Gong Yi, who was on the side, had to take the shard abruptly, and then head to the side to watch the fight between the two sides. I have to say that the friction between the two sides, the sparks that came out were not so weak. Not only to swallowing people alive is the same danger, and there is even a feeling of life and death. Therefore, at this moment, no one dared to carry it hard, but after a light hit twice, he left directly. I have to say that the monsters on my side still have a slight advantage. At this moment, Gong Yi also discovered another point. If he guessed correctly, the people next to him also seemed to know, and he didn't know who it was, but at the same time he also discovered that the pirate ship was not his own. The boat at his feet, his eyes looked at the monster next to him inquiringly. At this time, the blue eye was only calm, but the decision in his heart did not tell him which place was the real black pirate ship, but it was a good thing that he rescued himself from that place. It is a fully enclosed. If the air is not exchanged with the outside world, it may cause several people to suffocate to death. However, the man in black died tragically. At this moment, a man suddenly appeared on the deck opposite. When he saw it clearly, he realized that it was the man in black, and the other party was holding a stun stick. It seems to have come to look for these creatures to go back. This made me not think about it at all, and I was even a little more surprised in my heart. Could it be that the person on the board just shot wasn't him? Could he have a clone? This kind of technology is probably in the ruins of previous years. I only saw it once when I found the treasure, and it was a coincidence. I didn't expect a few of you to run out. It seems that this clone is not all under my control. Someone should be interfering in it. It seems that you broke my control of following the rules. You will be responsible for one-time compensation. Otherwise, how can I be worthy of the disappearance of my avatar? Each one cost me a lot of ability. It seems that this time if it is not for your compensation, it will be too worthless. Chapter 1194, Cooperation. After hearing this, Gong Yi quickly took a step back. Under such a dangerous premise, he didn't want to move forward bravely. What if he lost his life, and he couldn't tell that the man in black in front of him would have a problem with him? As for himself, he is full of killing intent, and he can't wait to scrape his own bones. Whether or not we are a blind man in such a situation can be expected, and it is true that he dismantled his laboratory and released these little monsters. But I didn't expect that it would actually be able to clone with the man's voice. With a wave of his hand, he separated out many men in black, and their hands and feet were doing different movements. You must know that being able to learn the avatar technique is already a very big leap. If you can still control these avatars do different actions, it will be even more amazing. I didn't expect that under the current situation, you can still see such people do have some surprises. Looking at your eyes, you should have seen someone who can do the avatar technique. You have a mysterious aura about you. If you can, I will help you to maximize this ability. How do you think it compares? I don't need you to pay any price. I just need you to have nothing to do with them in your next actions, and you don't care about them at all. Don't say that you are helping you discover your abilities. I will give you what you want. After hearing this, Gong Yi also felt very tempted, but the eyes of the little monster next to him were more precious to him in this life. If he didn't bring himself out when the place collapsed just now, he wouldn't be at all. There is no escape from birth. The things in this can't be simply calculated. In this aspect, the calculation must be based on the cause and effect. Since these are the little monster appeared first, so it should be natural. There should be other development. I can't just because of a little wish in my heart. I can't just wipe out the hope of others' survival. So at this moment Gong Yi's eyes are firm, very firm, and don't want to see this in front of me. Man, she came here just as a scourge. The man in black saw the look in his eyes, which made Gong Yi's heart not much, and again to disprove it, he is very clear that he thinks it is just for those things. Everyone is because of this starting point, why should they be afraid? Along with his laughter, he also appeared several times. This scene showed some fear in Gong Yi's eyes. It's definitely not a good thing for these things to appear out of thin air, and at this moment Gong Yi also clearly felt that kind of a breath of air. If you guessed correctly, this man is not as simple as he imagined. The man in black immediately surrounded all the monsters with the clone technique. Gong Yi naturally wanted to avoid this scene. But at this time, he was also haunted by evil spirits and couldn't move. Matsuri and the man in black came out with something similar to a peach wood sword, and flew towards Gong Yi quickly. Gong Yi couldn't hide himself, so he simply leaned back, trying to avoid this thing, but this sword seemed to be tracking, and as he leaned back, it came back in front of him again with the angle of rotation. I really didn't expect to have such a skill. Couldn't help but be stunned for a moment after seeing his series of actions. This is because Gong Yi also knows his water manipulation skills, and I'm afraid it will be exposed soon, but he can hide it for a while. It's a while. It really doesn't make any difference. As expected, the creatures beside him also began to pounce slowly to help him. After all, he is the most helpless person in this place. They surrounded himself inside, which also moved Gong Yi's heart, so he simply used his own tricks directly. Use those water bullets to bounce them to the side one by one, and then condense the sword drawn from his hand. Since he and Lan Ying used a human sword to become one, his sword soul can be taken anywhere by himself. On the body. But I have to say that the brilliance that appeared on this sword really illuminated the face of the man in black on the opposite side, and I found that he was a man who couldn't see his face clearly, because his strength was too weak. Or because he deliberately concealed this. Gong Yi squinted his eyes, but didn't delve into it. Sometimes it's not good to delve into this kind of thing, and Gong Yi also discovered another strange thing. The monsters next to him seemed to be all the time. I have followed this man in black one after another. I didn't expect that among the many clones, they would be able to recognize who the real man in black was, but for me, there were not so many vague things, and Gong Yi also thought that only he could see this man in black. The person's true body. It seems that everyone here should be familiar with some of his behaviors. Chapter 1195, Sudden Attack. I really didn't expect that after a long time no see, you have already learned my basic moves, but has anyone told you that moves can be all kinds of strange? After hearing this, the surrounding monsters couldn't help but glance at each other, not knowing whether it was because of what he said, or something else. But at this time, it is obvious that people can perceive some special atmosphere, just like the man in black in front of him. His wild laughter is like the man before, but he doesn't dare to go too far. He must know that man it has disappeared for a long time. If this is the case, then does he also have the ability to clone? Martial Tucci is probably not as simple as he imagined, so this is the key object to be investigated recently, but Gong Yi found those creatures when rushing towards the man. He seemed a little shy. I always dare not fight with all my strength. I don't know what they are afraid of, and I can't ask myself. After all, this is something that belongs to others. I am lucky if my fate is my own, and I don't need to worry about the rest. Don't ask too much, just wait until you win and go together. But at this time, the black-clothed man headed by, waved lightly in the air, and the time seemed to have stopped. It didn't move anymore, and the faces of these creatures also stiffened. At this time, Gong Yi moved after a while. I found that I could still walk, but why were they suddenly controlled? Of course I don't understand the gap between them. Going to the front line with them to fight, this situation also made me feel a little overwhelmed, but fortunately, things have developed completely, but these monsters were suddenly banned, which really made me not consider it. If you guessed correctly, you are the captain who just boarded the black pirate ship. I didn't expect Martial Tucci to be subdued by you. It seems that you will really buy people's hearts. It stands to reason that his situation in bed is not very good. If it is not for the rumors, his strength will not be worse than yours. You have to remember this. If you are tough, you will definitely suffer. There is no benefit to be gained. After hearing this, Gong Yi had a problem with the man in black. He was reminding himself to live well, or to let himself win against him in the battle. The man in black noticed that his eyes didn't say much, and held a compass-like thing in the air. I have to say that the light emitted by that thing really made me feel a little weird, as if something floated over from a distance, grabbed my soul at once, and dragged it into the air. Gong Yi's face was full of pain. He had to know that at this moment, it was as if he was being torn apart, and he was torn in half without mercy. How could he bear such a situation? I didn't expect him to be so ruthless. The surrounding air seemed to be controlled by someone, that is, a suffocating appearance. At this moment, Gong Yi opened his eyes aggressively, trying to observe the expression on the face of the man in black, but the other party did not. He ignored himself. Without even a profiled face, he turned around and went about his own business. The compass was floating in the air. The monsters controlled by time did not have any expressions on their faces, nor did the other people's faces. It seemed that the compass was only aimed at me, but I didn't expect it to be so ruthless. But fortunately, I found that the flaw of the compass, if I can get the stone next to me under my control, and throw it up and knock the compass crooked, my test this time will be considered a success. As he slowly got up from the ground, Gong Yi also successfully stood up against the trend of the compass. It has to be said that this sense of superiority is difficult to extricate from oneself. It was a big difficulty, and suddenly it was upgraded, and then it was completed with great pains and hardships. However, the compass was constantly circling above him. Gong Yi felt that he had some flaws, and quickly shot at him with his origin, knocking the compass off, and it fell to the ground, and the spoon on it shattered. Come on, I really didn't expect this thing, and what I thought was exactly two extremes. I originally thought that some strange magic circle would appear when I dropped the line, and then I enveloped myself in it, and suddenly deprived myself of all the mana, and let others slaughter, but the world is just an ordinary compass. I really didn't expect to be able to break my compass array so easily. It seems that I can't despise you. After hearing this, the corner of Gong Yi's mouth twitched upwards. Chapter 1196. Compass. Although this compass is said to be an unexpected thing, but you must be clear, if you are surrendered so easily, how can you be considered a captain of a pirate ship? And now I have to rendezvous with Illuma and the others. The current situation is very difficult. If I don't catch their traces in a short time, there may be some other situations. It's not that I'm reluctant but afraid. It's not necessary to despise or not, they are all equal people. Why talk about this? Don't look down on me in your heart. I've agreed to this, but if you have any other thoughts, I think you should say hello to me in advance to avoid problems with the distance between the two sides. After hearing this, the man in black smiled, as if he heard some big joke. It seems that it should be impossible for her to apologize to herself. He understands. He is not alone in this place. He can also destroy all the facilities in this place with his own power. The laboratory has been destroyed by half of those creatures just now, and that fan was also killed by them. It's just such a person who needs to face, what's the big deal? Moreover, these creatures have already saved themselves once, and it is reasonable for them to help them once in return. Now that they are fixed here like this, I am afraid that if they do not save them, it will be difficult to survive if they are pulled back. Look at that. The test tube inserted on top of the jar will know. All kinds of gases and liquids are transported into their bodies. I don't know whether to use them as a real experiment or to dissect them. This thing in itself makes me feel very scared, and even more so. Especially in the current situation. Don't you feel guilty? Take them as an experiment. If you live on an equal footing with them, maybe they can be used by you, just like they are to me now. Everyone is very kind. Do you think it's bad? That's you guys. What people who make small troubles think about. What my IQ thinks is to have a détente society. Let all people listen to me. Then I will remember the master of the world, and that will also be it's my world. All these things are not as easy as you think. Hearing this, it also made Gong Yi a little more disgusted. People like him still want to have that kind of life. Ordinary is enough, so many, what to do, but when people in black have eyes that desire and it is not false. He still hopes to have such a life, but it is absolutely impossible for him to achieve it. After all, before he finds Aluma and Lu Wei to meet, it doesn't matter what she wants, but these creatures must be rescued at this time. I had no choice but to negotiate with the man in black. But the other party cut off his words before he spoke, and didn't want to hear about pleasing for these animals. Gong Yi naturally knew why, maybe because they betrayed the man in black, and from that underground they ran out of the laboratory. In order to punish the men in black, not only should they be taken back, but even more exaggerated experiments should be done. Then I'm sorry, I'm welcome. After saying this, Gong Yi hooked his hand into a claw shape and sucked up the water in the sea next to you. You spent 2 water-shaped warriors standing beside you and waved his hand lightly. The 2 warriors rushed towards the man in black, and at the same time the man in black suddenly sighed. I didn't expect that there are people who refine water in this place. I thought it was all fake. I didn't expect that I was fortunate enough to meet a manipulator today. When I take down your 2 water people, I will all force you to ask me how to cultivate this thing. As the voice fell, the man in black flew out like an arrow that had been attached to a bow and arrow, aiming at the 2 water men in front of him, but because it was made of water, no matter what the shot was, the shape of the man in black can be restored. At this time, the man in black is already out of breath. I really didn't expect this thing to have such a great use. I will definitely take it this time. You should be prepared to be surrendered by me. As the 2 water men also began to control the water, the deck became wet, the water polo flew everywhere, and the man in black also learned a little. As long as the water polo came to him, he avoided it directly, and he didn't need to talk to him. He hit hard, after all, it was just how painful the water hit him. This is the most important thing for Gong Yi. I didn't expect the man in black to find out so quickly, because the water polo doesn't do much harm to the human body. Pinch a spell. Chapter 1198, Tunnel. This can't help but make Gong Yi a little strange, but after he suddenly smelled the smell in the air, he knew that someone had put a kind of ecstasy in this place, which can make people fall into hallucinations quickly, and then deeply trapped in it, unable to extricate herself. Sure enough, it became like this because of this reason. At this time, the light of the lens also turned on. I didn't expect it to be an illusion before. I thought there was a door at the end, but it was just a long tunnel. Still, the ship did not leave this area. And I can also hear the sound from the deck above. This is the control room of a cabin. There are many people who will patrol this place, but at this moment I want to go to the end, but suddenly I hear that. The sound of the iron door being opened. You said this person is really controlled by us here. Don't mention it, didn't the boss tell us long ago? As long as this ecstasy smells a little, people in this tunnel, no matter how tough their hearts are, will never be able to escape from this place, even if they see it. The flaws have long been immobilized because of too much inhalation. After hearing this, Gong Yi moved his hands and feet and found that it was normal and there was no change. He couldn't help but see the 2 people in front of him. The ecstasy incense didn't go up in the tunnel. You should smell it when you come in. But there was no change between the 2 of them. It seemed that it was either something they ate before, or the sachet they were carrying. As expected, when the 2 passed by, Gong Yi smelled a kind of vanilla. The taste of Sakura is unique to Lan Ying. Did they do something to Lan Ying? Don't say that the spice bag given by that little girl is really good. Don't mention it. The people on this ship have basically taken a fancy to her, and let her go to her as a woman. Who knows that in the end, she will not be able to live or die. Later, she went to the back kitchen to be a cook. After hearing this, Gong Yi was relieved. It was enough that some people didn't stretch out his dirty hands to Lan Ying, otherwise he wouldn't spare them this time. Bobo is also safe now. It is said that the captain will also pluck the little hair off to make a quilt. Don't talk about it. Mr. Kuki has already been arrested. Who can really be real? Now the head and deputy head seem to be very kind, but they are doing everything before suppressing us. These pirates. After hearing this, Gong Yi didn't. You frowned, he didn't do such a thing. Could it be that Luffy did something in secret? Bobo is still alive and well, that should be Lan Ying's protection. It seems that things haven't changed from before he left, it's just that a period of time has passed. The two of them seem to have a psychedelic incense, and they started to talk nonsense, and the sentences didn't match up. When the time came, he quickly drew a knife and stabbed the two men on the neck. As expected, at the moment when the two of them fell, the key on their body fell out. Gong Yi took a kerosene lamp and glanced inside. There was an endless tunnel, which made Gong Yi unexpected. With an idea, he pushed the two of them forward. Maybe the two of them can trigger some mechanisms for themselves and prevent some disasters. I don't know where this tunnel leads. I didn't expect that this pirate ship would have such a secret. After reaching the end, it is the door of a secret room. I don't know where it leads, but it is deep and very quiet inside. It looks like a place that no one has lived in for a long time. Gong Yi found a suitable one from the large string of keys, and gently inserted it into the keyhole. As soon as he turned the door, he opened it by himself. Gong Yi didn't even think about it, he wanted to throw the two people in. After there was no response at all, the door closed directly. Gong Yi didn't hesitate, and didn't want to go inside. But there was a roar after another from behind. Gong Yi turned around abruptly, not knowing where the sound came from, but he must be forcing himself to enter this secret room, so he had no choice but to lift it up. I stepped in, and the moment I entered, the door was tightly closed. Gong Yi stood up and sat beside him. They were just knocked out by himself. Gong Yi woke them up, and when the two saw Gong Yi in front of them, it was like seeing a ghost. Turned pale with fright, Gong Yi asked them to find their way in this place. Chapter 1199, Chamber of Secrets. This place has no road, it's just a secret room. If you want to get out from this place, it's not that easy at all, unless you have the key to this place, but the key to this place can only be opened from the outside, that is to say unless someone comes to this place to rescue you, everything will fall in vain. Listening to the two of them talking, this made Gong Yi have no idea that they had such a plan, but what does it matter to him? It's the two of them who are really trapped here. Don't look high. It looks like he thinks his own is restricted by the two of them. And judging from the current situation, Luffy will soon discover this place, and then save himself from here. At that time, who will have to send the arrow on the string, but he can't help himself. The current situation is also like this. If I continue in this way, it will definitely be very difficult, and I have no way to repeat the same mistakes. These things are out of the two of you, and you don't need to worry about them. As for who will leave this place in the end, I don't need to say, you should be very clear in your hearts. If someone really came to save me, it could only be me. Go and leave the two of you behind, or we can take a gamble. After hearing this, the two people stopped talking. I don't know if it was because of fear or what, but at this time, Gong Yi always felt a little hesitant in his heart, as if someone was playing his heartstrings in that place. Some things are already out of my control. After all, in such a situation, it would not be easy to push the boat along the way, and at this time Gong Yi also discovered another point. These two people seem to have no fear. Is it really like what they said? Luffy, if it is biased towards them, then this time there will be an account to calculate, but at the same time Gong Yi also discovered another point. Although these two people seem to be fearless, there seems to be a sound inside. If you guessed correctly, there must be something in this lens, but I just don't know what it is. It's okay for me to leave the two of them now, but I don't need to say what will happen at that time. Once it's a horrible thing, the two of them may help a little bit, so Gong Yi's eyes widened. Turning around, he questioned the two people in front of him with a sharp approach. That's it. Luffy didn't seem to be very strong before sending the two of you. Are they just two embroidered pillows? It seems that this time is really beyond my expectations, but I thought the two of you were. At least he is also a strong man. Who knows, he is just a waste in this place, let alone trying to escape. I am afraid it will be difficult to leave. After hearing this, The eldest brother really fell for it, snorted coldly, and then said something revealing. At this time it was too late for the second child to hold her back. Luffy is the same as you. The black pirate ship should have belonged to him in the first place. He disappeared for so long back then, but now he was rescued. Naturally, he has to return to this place and regain his glory. Quote. Just when the next words were not finished, the second child suddenly jumped up and covered the boss's mouth. At this time, the other party also noticed that he seemed to have said something wrong, so his face quickly turned pale, but Gongyi, there was a bloodthirsty expression on his face at this moment. No one would have thought that he would actually deceive himself, not only betray himself, but even use such behavior to do such a thing. This time he has an account, at least for himself, he has been able to grasp it. The lifeblood of him, he just doesn't know what method to use to reveal his secret. I'm afraid Aluma and Mayer don't know what Luffy did this time, so Lan Ying doesn't care. The two of them don't know that they will be doing things for Luffy, and it won't be so easy at that time. All of a sudden, I was a little confused, and when I wanted to go out, I remembered the voice just now. Could it be that? Was it made by people on purpose, just to lead me into this place? What are you thinking about? Still thinking about the voice just now? Now you've fallen to the same level as we are, because you're paranoid. It's just a boat. Where can we not get so many monsters? Some are just behind us, but the monsters in this place never come out for food except. Very hungry, just in time for a lucky time. This monster yesterday just been fed. He could say the next words. He was thrown to the ground by a burst of Hayate, and when Hayate left, only a mutilated arm was left. At this time, the second child jumped back in fright. Chapter 1200. Octopus. Chapter 3. Tell me what that thing is. I promise you can leave without having the same fate as him. I will take your belief first in all subsequent actions, but if you don't tell me I can run away by myself and throw you away in that place. That is the monster that Luffy brought back from the desert. The captain said, this is the strangest monster in that place. He can devour everyone at a lightning-fast speed. Of course, there is only one thing that can to subdue him. That means Luffy has a special fragrance on his body. After hearing this, Gongyi put his heart back into his stomach. That the so-called aroma is actually just a sachet made by Lan Ying, but it has some special uses, like it can interfere with himself. The smell on the body allows the monster to quickly avoid itself when it smells the smell on its body, instead of ramming. To know that this smell is equivalent to the smell in her home, it can make him feel a kind of intimacy. As long as it can soothe her psychology, there is no problem that can't be solved. That's why Luffy asked Lan Ying to do such a thing, and he also knew a little about the spice aspect. The two of them just hit it off right away, but no one thought that Luffy would use this thing to do something else. Needless to say, I must be able to understand this time. When you go back, you must talk about it there. The technology can't be leaked, and Alma and Mayer are too easy to believe and fly away. If it was said that Luffy believed him because he could save himself, then now if you look at it, what if he harmed himself? So you are saying that Luffy is the planner of this incident. Otherwise, do you think that he will take it lightly because you are his brother? As long as you leave this ship and stay in this place, then the black pirate ship will also belong to him. As long as you can cover up the traces of your existence, then no one will raise any doubts in this regard. After hearing this, Gongyi nodded thoughtfully. This incident really exceeded his expectations, but what they said couldn't be taken seriously, but one had to be cautious. You are within your own expectations. After all, the reason why he found him for no reason at the beginning was because he felt that something was not right, at least for him. It might not be as normal as he imagined. The place disappeared, otherwise it would be impossible to give him a message in Gongyi, not for nearly a week. It seems that what happened this time is what they expected, so why did Mayer and Aluma not notice anything? They are also staying together, and they should also understand this aspect. At this time, Gongyi was a little overwhelmed. The two people next to him also looked at him with a mocking expression. I'm afraid no one would have thought that he would end up like this, and the most important thing was that Luffy didn't think about it. He slapped himself behind his back. Didn't quite believe it at first, but the two of them are already at the end of their lives, so they can't be deceived by their current performance. A roaring voice suddenly appeared behind them. The expressions of the two of them changed quickly, and then they hid. When I got behind Gong Yi, I didn't know what to do. The real Gong Yi looked at the two of them, but the two of them trembled and pointed their fingers in front of them. I really didn't expect such a creature to exist in this place, but listening to that, the roar shouldn't be a small one. Biological. What are you two hiding? Since you have the ability to frame it, I will definitely be able to surrender this thing. I don't dare to go to you. Fact that the two pushed each other was an eye-opener for Gong Yi. He didn't expect that in the face of the problem of life, the two of them would be as unbalanced as ever. It seems that the two of them were just driven by interests. I didn't expect that there are still people like this. Of course, it's no surprise to me, but that creature's cry aroused my interest. How could this kind of animal be kept on the black pirate ship? Unless what was it that fed the water monster once? But just as he was about to take a step forward, a huge pulling force suddenly appeared behind him, and something similar to an octopus appeared behind him. The two people were already caught by his huge tentacles, and they were tightly entangled. One's face had turned purple. Gong Yi pointed at that person, but the octopus didn't respond at this time. But the roar from the other side of the shot still exists. It seems that these should be two sea monsters. I didn't expect Luffy to be so interested in raising so many. Can it be said that Marshall's magic is the savior of this place?